What impact is the Youth Endowment Fund looking to make on communities? And I use that as a broad umbrella, but across the country, communities are very different. And what impact is it looking to make on young people specifically who are at risk of being in violent situations or violent crime and criminality?
Yeah. So when I took the job, the thing that I've done the most, which has become harder since COVID started, but is sit down with young people, mostly aged sort of 14, 15, 16, who have got lived experience of what it's like to be around violence, and just listen to them. And the main thing that just came across in all of those conversations, and in the conversations I'd had before taking the job, is just the importance of what it really means to feel safe, and how many young people do not feel safe, and how many young people build an expertise in looking over their shoulder, and how many young people feel that there's no grown-ups that they trust, no adults that they trust, and how many young people feel that there's no alternative, how many young people feel that there's no way that this can ever change. These sort of themes of a lack of hope, a lack of someone being there with you in it, are really endemic. And I think a lot of the country has no idea, that this is how children in our country feel. Large numbers of children in our country feel. I think that the core we will fail it ultimately, and it's very easy for us to fail. Like, we will fail if we spend the money and we write the reports, but nothing actually changes. That's really easy for us to do. And I think the way in which we will succeed is by realising that we're not going to change a thing by ourselves. People with money and clever ideas really don't change very much. You change things by taking people with you, and more importantly, going with people where they're already going. So that means we need to be really good at listening. I mean, your question was, what will change for young people, and what will change for communities. I think for young people, I think that's really easy. More young people need to feel safe. Our job isn't to make everything perfect. Nothing's ever perfect, but more young people need to feel safe. Less young people feeling that they need to carry knives because of feeling unsafe. I think the second thing that needs to change is that there's a lot of people who really want to help young people, and they don't always know what to do. Teachers aren't always clear what the right thing to do is. Youth workers, we have some great youth workers in the country, but they're not always clear. What's the right approach to mentoring? What's the right approach? Funders don't always understand what is valuable and what's not. We don't always get a handle on actually relationships matter a huge amount, and how do you best help support those relationships. Government departments haven't got their head around everything. So I think the second thing that needs to change is people need to understand much better what does actually make a real difference.
What kind of projects are coming up with solutions or ideas?
Yeah, so we don't. I'm always keen to sort of be honest about what we don't know. I don't think we know, like, in a really strong capital K, know what is the best way to reach young people at the moment. But maybe I could share with you some things I suspect to be correct. So I think online and remote stuff has its place. Here we are, we're having a conversation, remotely, and it's working pretty well. I think it has its place, and it's not of no value, but I think it's much better at maintaining a relationship than it is about reaching out to someone new. And I also think people get tired and sort of lose interest a lot quicker when it's the phone or a text or this, rather than actually being able to bump into someone. So I think it has its place, but I think we shouldn't overestimate it. I think we've undervalued the importance of detached youth work or on-road youth work for a period of time now. and it's partly because it is slightly. I don't think we've done a good enough job at explaining what it is and why it works and how it works. And I think actually I have a suspicion that we may well see that that's particularly important at the moment. I think the other thing is the youth sector and the education sector sort of sometimes see each other as completely different worlds.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually quite hard to find a teacher who's not really genuinely concerned about these issues, or who doesn't care about how a young person feels. They've just got other pressures that they've got to deal with as well, because it matters that the child can read and do maths and other things. And it's hard to find a youth worker that doesn't think it matters that a child has opportunities for employment. And I think what we'll see is actually there's much more that could be done to try and get youth work provision within schools, because actually the schools are open and they're going to be open. And they're one of the places where I think we need to try and get young people back into as fast as possible, especially when they're vulnerable. And that's obviously been hugely disrupted by what's gone on. I mean, the fourth one that I'm least sure on, but I think is really interesting, and it's really hard, but like how do the police and the youth sector collaborate? Like, how does that work? Because clearly it's really tricky. Like, what a young person often needs is someone they can trust, who they can talk to, whom they talk to frankly and honestly, who's not going to share that with someone. And the police have, a completely different set of responsibilities, but they are out and they know a lot of stuff and they meet a lot of young people, and these worlds need to somehow find a way to. And I think some of the best, most thoughtful people working with young people are really thoughtful about how that relationship works, and I think we do need to sort of do more thinking on it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I think one final question is, what legacy do you hope the Youth Endowment Fund will leave? You've kind of alluded to it kind of making a change. If you articulate what those changes would be, where you're like, actually, it was 10 years well worth investing, even with the challenges of COVID and the longer term impact of that. So,
so I think probably three things. Maybe four. So if it gets to five, I get one. So I think one of them is that we leave behind a sort of body, like a body of knowledge that people respect, that they think of, I've contributed to that and I respect it. It's not just a load of wonky academic stuff that's disconnected from the real world, nor is it just some person's opinion. Like, it's actually, I think that's more right than wrong about what works and why it works and what's important, so that you can consult and turn to and go, we're thinking of doing a mentoring project. How important is it that we hire someone who's got the same background as the person they're mentoring? We're thinking of doing a mentoring project, but we can only fund it for 3 months. Is it worth doing? Like, some of these sort of questions, it should be a body of knowledge that gives some trustworthy answers on some of these questions that people will then build on and improve on over time. And that's hard, right? People have tried to do this before. I'm not trying to say it's completely sort of straightforward, but that's one. The second for me is trying to bring together to make sure that when we think about like what works and we ask really rigorous questions, and funders are trying to be rigorous about what they fund, they also think really hard about what the lives of young people are like. It's not okay to just go, well, I don't care about the academic research because I care about lived experience. And it's not okay to go, well, I've read all the academic research, so why do I need lived experience? Actually, it's natural to say that you need both of those. That would be an important thing to leave behind. The third one, which is the one that really matters, is we've checked something has systematically changed. So yes, we should identify some programs that work. Yes, the body of knowledge should tell us what type of mentoring is better, but some things are just hard-boiled into the system, like the way that funding works, the way that money is allocated, the way that rules work for certain things, the way that regulation and inspection works. There are certain things that just are not set up to make it as easy as possible to try and help some of these young people. The most obvious one is a lot of the services that these young people need are delivered completely separately rather than brought together. Now, that is really hard to fix because it's a lot cheaper to separate these things out. But I think if we don't see some sort of systemic change to some of these things, I think we haven't succeeded. And I think I said there was a fourth one. I think the fourth one is that I'd like to at least try and I'd like to leave behind some networks and coalitions where people from, people working in youth work, people working in teaching, people working in social work, people working in policing are actually starting to see that they can have much more impact on some of these issues if they come together. And actually they argue together for some things to change, and they work together in certain areas. And lots of that happens, and it's really good. But I think we need to just knit people together a bit more to try and actually see the change we want.